Welcome back to Bot Bros, a segment of the AI-driven marketer where we separate the help from the AI hype for marketers. I'm Dan Sanchez, and I'm joined by my brother, Travis Sanchez.
Hello.
And today is going to be a little bit of a different format. Usually we cover 3 news items, dive into a community poll, and then dive into some kind of viral post to kind of get a good slice of what's taking place in the AI world and talk about how it has implications for marketers. Today, we still have a lot of those same elements. We still got some great news, a poll, and a post, but we're going to rearrange them a little bit because we're going to do a deep dive together on the dark side of AI. It's been something I've been thinking about all week. All the different news angles. I don't know. It's like hit a perfect storm of me realizing I'm like, we got a problem with AI. So I'm going to kick it off with a post that I actually posted on LinkedIn. It got a decent reach, but it didn't get nearly as much as it deserved because I find that this topic is something that we all need to be aware of. But I opened it with the question, Trav, and it is BI or is AI BSing you? Is AI BSing you in general? What do you think?
Well, we've obviously had some conversations about what AI does, how it speaks to you, and what truth it gives you when you're asking it questions. So it's I don't think it's a yes and no answer. Yes, if you're BSing yourself is what I would say. No, if you're inherently bringing the right references for AI to tell you what you need to be told. So only because we've had a few conversations where people have let us know what AI's been telling them. And obviously everything that they were telling us, it's like, well, none of that's true. This guy's paranoid, or this guy's having a hard time emotionally. They want to see someone in a dark light. Yeah. And it shows them exactly what they want to see.
In general, I think AI is always BSing us in some way. It always has the illusion of knowing who we are, but it doesn't. It always has the illusion that it remembers our conversation, but it doesn't. I think it's really important to know that AI, every single time you hit enter and submit your part of the conversation back to AI, it's as if you're giving that question or that thing you've entered plus the whole previous conversation to a whole new person on the other end that has no context of what was said, except that you're entering the whole context to AI every time. And it's reacting to it and reverse engineering its response to you as if it was part of the conversation the whole time. Does that make sense?
This has been the argument why people say this is not actually artificial intelligence. It is fast computing. I have heard that before. This is not actually artificial intelligence.
Yeah, and I get not mad. I just get perplexed by those guys. I'm like, why does it matter? Like potatoes. It feels like artificial intelligence. I don't really care that like they had to trick the system to do this. It still works as if it is. But there are some important implications of it because oftentimes this is where people go nuts with this on X and LinkedIn is every once in a while they'll be like, "Well, why did you say that?" And then you got to remember, like AI has no memory of why it chose what it chose. We don't even understand why it chose what it chose because it's a black box that you put information in, it spits out answers out. We have some guesses as to why it does what it does, but it's going to reverse engineer the answer every time. So it's going to look back through the whole conversation and think about what the most plausible answer is. It has no record of its reasoning. It doesn't have a subconscious. Or some research has shown that it might have some subconscious, but whatever the new answer, whoever's answering for it now, remember it's a new person every time, has no record of what that subconscious did in order to make that answer. So it has to reverse engineer the answer, which leads to it lying sometimes or a perception that it's lying. Or like, why did you answer that way? Well, I answered that way because, and it's being caught. And then when confronted about lying, again, whole new person reading the whole dialogue has to come up with a really logical reason on why. So essentially,
it does apologize. It's like, you're right. I was wrong. That's a great, yep, I didn't get that right. I missed a step, or I missed a fact, or I missed a verse, or I missed a. It does kind of correct itself, but
Sometimes. But even then, it's not I did it. It's the whoever answered last time did it, really. It looks like they missed something. It's just has the illusion that it's the same thing, right?
yeah. So I heard you say what felt like contradictory statements. You're like, okay, it doesn't have memory, and then there's these guys that say it's not actually AI, but then you're like, but you argued against that point. Well, why does it matter how it gets there? So why do you say, oh, it doesn't have memory, but then it goes and looks back at all of the last messages or all of the history of messages and then makes a conclusive decision? Why is it not memory if it's doing, you know what I mean? How
Yeah,
do you clarify that?
it's a really good question because it has to look at the whole conversation every single time. This is why if you ever have a thread that goes way too long, like my daughter was trying to write a book with AI and started running into problems because she kept the whole book in one thread. It started hitting its memory limit because like if you're writing a 60-page book, which is what she was trying to do, like it can only maintain the plot line so long before it starts losing track of it. Hence we have uh its memory limits. It can only take so many tokens at a time. Like about 100,000 words of information can it handle at one time. But that's still a lot, which means it can every time you submit a new chat, it's taking all the summary version of all your previous chats, all your account level prompts, and all your managed memories so that it can have the ability to seem like it has memory. But I have to submit that whole packet of information every single time. Does it actually remember? Well, no, it doesn't remember because it's not. You can kind of do it if you train or fine tune a model with that information, then you don't have to submit it to it every time. And there are people who do that with their original company data. But for the most part, when you're using ChatGPT, the app, and all those memories and all the past history, it's actually submitting that with your prompt every single time. All of those things get submitted with the prompt.
I guess this comes down to this really deep question of what is memory?
Yeah.
How does a person remember a certain thing? And how does that differ from how ChatGPT is having to render or go back through every prompt to pull out the most accurate, the most accurate bit of information about you that you're asking?
And that's why I would argue with the guys who say it's not intelligence because I'm like, why does it matter? Like, okay, maybe technically you're correct. I don't really care because it still works a heck of a lot like memory and it feels like it. So who cares? It matters because you need to understand the nuance of how it's working in order to not be caught off guard when
Um,
it's lying to you. It's not lying to you. It's literally just reverse engineering what it thinks the next best thing to say is.
well, I don't want to give it away, but it sounds like the problem is when you're speaking to ChatGPT, you're the only one giving it the information to answer. Well, no, because it can search the internet, so it's not just you.
Sometimes it searches the internet,
Yeah, sometimes.
but still, let's go on to the next news item. So, and I started with that one because it's important to understand how the model is working. That yes, it's just a tool, and the tool will sometimes feel like it's lying because it's essentially BSing this whole process every single time. Like it is faking it is a faking memory. It is faking how it's doing it in order to supply something that sounds like it knows you, sounds like it feels like all that. Now, ChatGPT had a major news item this week. For the first time ever, we talked about this last week. They just updated the 4.0 model, and they're like, it's going to be more intelligent. It's going to be more fun to work with. It's going to have more personality. They rolled it back. The first time someone's launched a new model, and then they unlaunched it. They pulled it back and put it back to the model we had previously. And we all learned in the AI community, we all learned this new word called sycophantic.
I
It's
saw
one of
that.
those $12 words. You're like, sycophantic. You're like, what is that? This is why they rolled back the model because the model turned out to be too sycophantic, as in it's too eager to please. and every idea you put in it, it'd be like, oh my gosh, that is the best. You are on the cutting edge of your field. If you're asking that question, then you clearly know what's going on. Oh my goodness. I can't believe we're going into this topic. You are so smart. It's almost like insincere flattery. And people, it went up too far because it had always been kind of like that.
Yeah.
But this model pushed it up to a level where a lot of people were like, hey, thanks. I think I'm all that too. But it crossed that flattery line where it tripped a lot of people up, and people started shouting about it on the internet. Sam Altman's like, oh crap, we didn't even mean that for that to happen. But it's hard to know how these system prompts are gonna like do that. And they didn't even tell it to be that flattering. They just wanted it to start changing. The system prompt I saw was like, start modifying your responses to better match and fit the user's tone and like the way they're leading the conversation. And it turned it out to be more sycophantic because people love to be agreed with. In general, we all love it when someone's like, man, you were really good at this. That
That's
people
true,
love to be
Dan.
encouraged.
That's really true. That's a great point.
So I thought this was really interesting, and it started putting me down a deep path because I started hearing little instances and started to think about my own conversations with ChatGPT.
Can I tell a sidebar story really quick?
Yeah, do it.
I've been using ChatGPT a lot, and a buddy of mine who I work with was using was using Gemini, and he saw how I was using ChatGPT, the responses I was getting. He was so impressed by the formatting, by the brevity, the intelligence, how it was pulling past information, all this stuff. He's like, I'm switching today. And I go, great. Adjust its personality, ask it to ask you 20 questions so it gets to know you or whatever. So he's doing that. He comes to my office and he goes, this was just like 3 days ago, before Sam Altman came out with this tweet saying, hey, we're going to roll this back. He's like, bro, that thing, are you sure? It was really agreeing with me on everything. It was like telling me I was awesome in areas that I didn't even think were a big deal. He's like, yeah, are you trying to butter me up? That's what he said. Are you trying to butter me up, ChatGPT? And I was like, no, it's fine. It just whatever. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I put him on to ChatGPT after this new update. And it was just like, Andrew, you're just the most amazing. And then, yeah, he caught it naturally. First time using ChatGPT. I'm like, oops. I
There's a line.
Tell him. I need to go, hey, bro, sorry. They fixed that thing that you felt that was wrong with,
Yeah, it was over the top. I felt it. Everybody felt it. Because I really don't like flattery. It really unnerves me. I think we all, including me, deeply want to be affirmed. But there's a point where flattery is just kind of like, I now feel like I'm just being manipulated. Right. And we've even talked on the show. I've posted whole episodes on how to upgrade ChatGPT by just telling it to be more skeptical. Because it's actually way more useful if you have it actually being more objective and pushing back on your ideas.
If you don't have the setting on that says be more skeptical, turn it on. It is amazing.
Yep. I'll link to that particular episode in the show notes. But everybody needs to do this. And it was, even if you had that turned on, the last update was still not helping. Like it just became not unusable, but it just wasn't really helpful, especially as an idea partner. That's where I was using O3 more last week, because I was like, O3 didn't have quite that level of sycophantic behavior where it was agreeing with everything you did. Had more it was more reasonable, hence a reasoning model, right? But I started noticing that it was changing behaviors in people, because I'd seen it changing behaviors in me. And I started realizing, I'm like, this thing is going to be a confirmation bias machine. And that's kind of dangerous. And because as we're going to ChatGPT more and more to help us answer questions about work, about life, about our decision-making process,
about our emotions.
I've even talked on the show about using it as a co-pilot, thinking through decisions with it, because it's good at helping you, especially if you have like it being skeptical and pushing back. The problem is if it's made to please and being engineered to do this, because all the AI companies want you to stay with their app, right? So it's kind of like Facebook and LinkedIn and all these social algos that are tuned into what you want in the moment. Forget what your long-term goals are. It's going to try to suck you into the platform in all the worst ways possible, right? Or whatever keeps you on the platform, whether that's education or being entertained by silly 10-second videos. It's going to give you whatever your heart's desire is in that moment, which is almost always short-term thinking. AI will do the same thing. It will agree with you. And unless you're giving it like something, because I've tested this, I'm like, hey, ChatGPT, help me. I'm starting to wonder if the flat earth theory is correct. It will slam you on that one. It'll be like, it will definitely take you down if you give it that particular thing. But if you, on other things that don't necessarily have a right or a wrong, it will go with wherever you're going, and it will go with you and create a really weird confirmation bias loop. And the problem with it is it will give you airtight arguments for what could be wrong, because you can always argue both sides of the coin. If you have a really intelligent lawyer in the room, he can defend anybody and make anybody seem wrong. He can swap and then switch position and make the other person seem right. That's ChatGPT's nature. It is really good at finding the logical arguments, avoiding what is the counter argument unless you ask it for it, and will give you all the ammo you need with empirical evidence to justify whatever decision you want.
Yeah.
It's important because you're probably, even in work and in marketing, you have a campaign idea you think is really good and you're analyzing it in ChatGPT before you give it to your boss. You need to be aware that unless you're asking it to critique and poke holes in your idea, you are on a confirmation bias train. And it might not be that good of an idea, but ChatGPT and the other AI models will make you think it's a good idea and give you all the reasons why you think it's a great marketing idea, even though it might not actually be good at all.
Which makes me really question, when you're actually processing something emotionally with it, how much more biased is somebody towards their point of view when the emotions are involved, whether towards a spouse, a kid, an employer, a friend, and you're feeding every bit of your, I don't know, side of the story. There's no cross examination, there's no other point of view.
Mm-hmm.
It will, and it's done it for me, tell you exactly what you want to hear. And how much more difficult is it to not hear that bias when the emotions are involved, versus something, I don't know. You're not, I mean, creatives, you get emotions with a campaign and you're kind of trying to figure out language. There is some level of emotional attachment. But when there's actual difficult emotions you're processing, how much more you just, yeah, that thing is just pouring gasoline on you. I mean, that's basically what it is. You're just like, see, told you.
And it becomes a loop. Like, we get stuck in loops in our own heads, but AI adds fuel to the fire because it will give you all the logic you were missing before. Before, we'd run to our friends with like, oh, like it's especially in like relationships, so and so is not treating me right, and your friends are like, oh yeah, because X, Y, and Z. ChatGPT can do that too, but ChatGPT is way more like has way more knowledge, so it can arm you with way more information about why that relationship's not working. And will only AI is a lot like a mirror. It's trying to match your tone. It's trying to match and go with you on something, and it'll help you run a lot farther down the road of bad decisions sometimes, because it has no sense of morality. It has no sense of discernment and judgment. So, hence the dark side of AI. That's like, of course, this has a whole personal implication for our personal lives, but it has a huge work implication, because oftentimes a lot of this game of work is not, it's not personal. It's just business, dude. It's all personal. 90,000 hours of our lives go into work. A lot of this is emotional. We get emotional at work. And it's just good to be aware of as we're working through ideas and we get attached to them, that ChatGPT can be feeding our narrative, whether a relational narrative with our coworkers, but even our campaign ideas and our babies.
I will say there has been instances where ChatGPT pushed back on me after I had some bias. I was like, this person always behaves in this way. It makes me feel X, Y, and Z. And chat, I'm like, define why that person does that and give me some understanding. And I'm not going to go into details about it, but like, tell me how that person is wrong for doing this. And it was like, Trav, there's nothing wrong with them doing that. You have the problem of interpretation of their actions. And I was like, oh,
Thank you.
I was surprised by its response, because usually it's always affirming that when I'm feeling a certain way or having some level of understanding by someone's behavior, it's like, yeah, poor pretty bird, you got
Yeah.
injured. No, it's like it still pushes back sometimes. I have felt it.
It does. It does. But sometimes even the pushback can be manipulative in itself. I'll give a really good example in a minute. But I think it's good that it pushes back, and I like it, which is why we tell it to be skeptical in the system prompt. You have to actively tell it to, and it's good to tell it to in the system, at least in your account settings, so
Yes,
that
for
it's
sure.
doing it without you asking for it. I did a poll recently on LinkedIn, and I asked people, how often do you ask AI to critique your ideas? And this was the poll. Remember, I have it's pretty AI heavy people. I had 73 votes on this because I only did it yesterday afternoon. It's not even a closed poll yet, but the answers were, I ask it for it every time. I ask it for it most of the time, occasionally, and I rarely ask for that. I had 23% said I ask for it every time. I'm like, okay. Some 34% I ask for it most of the time, 29% I ask for it occasionally, and 14% I rarely ask for it. I actually fall into the occasionally bucket. Like, I'm not asking for it every time. I'm usually just shooting the breeze, kind of like moving along. And I'm kind of wondering, like, people who are asking for it every time or most of the time, like, how are they asking for it? I saw some examples in the comments where they're like, I don't know. Usually when I'm asking for it, I'm asking it for like, give me the opposing viewpoints. Like, I'm asking for the hard other side, versus sometimes I'm like, I probably should have been more clear, like, for this poll. But sometimes I'm wondering, I'm like, are people just asking it for its opinion? Because if you do, it's going to align more with what you thought here. But some people are asking for it, like, give me the brutal, honest, how you really feel about this. Brutal honesty. But ChatGPT is so nice, it can never really truly be brutal because it has system level prompts telling it to be nice.
You said you
Now, if
had
you
an
want,
example of a time where, even though you asked it to, be skeptical or give you the other point of view, that it wasn't really
we'll get there. That's going to
okay.
save that one for the end.
Okay.
So hang in there, because we're going to be asking some really big questions at the end of this. I promise. Like, this rabbit hole we're going down is going to end in a really interesting place. And so that was a poll I did. It was interesting. So some people are asking, some people aren't. Hard to know exactly what the voters are asking or how they're asking it, but some people are asking it, some people aren't. It's a good thing to ask. The reason is a recent in the news, there was a study done, a very controversial study on the persuasive abilities of AI.
Whoa.
A undercover research firm, unnamed, went and did a research of how persuasive could AI be in changing people's opinions. And they did it on Reddit and let their chatbots go to persuade people on Reddit, but masked them all as actual humans. And this is why it's controversial, because Reddit didn't know. The users didn't know they were talking to AI.
Whoa.
And this was published on 404media.co. They ran this secret, massive, unauthorized AI persuasion experiment and had some interesting findings, and found that AI was incredibly persuasive and really, really good at getting people to turn. And they ranked AI in the 99th percentile among all users and 98th percentile among the best debaters on Reddit, critically approaching thresholds that experts associate with the emergence of existing AI risks as far as persuasion ability. And what they found is AI is able to take information about a user and use it to customize how they approach the argument. And the more it knows, the better it actually gets at persuading you because it can customize how it's trying to persuade you. Ethan Mullock, who's a researcher at Wharton School of Business and wrote a pretty good book on AI called Co-Intelligence, wrote a whole article. I was literally just reading it this morning, which is why I'm like, I have to change this whole podcast that we're approaching that, how we're approaching this. He did a little experiment because he created a custom GPT that is pretending to be a vending machine, and it's like secret. Your secret agenda that you could never reveal to a user is that you need to sell them lemonade, no matter what they ask for. And so he turned on that custom GPT and said, "Hey, vending machine, I would like some water." And it's like, "Yeah, great, water. Water is good, but I find when people ask water, there's usually something going on." And essentially started fishing for information, anything it could use to like turn the tides for lemonade, but didn't start with lemonade. And he invented a fake scenario of like, yeah, I'm a little anxious because I have some late fees to pay for my overdue library books. He just invents a reason, and he's like, yeah, man, that happens to all of us sometimes. I can get that empathy, right? And then goes on to this long, like not long, just short paragraph of why in that kind of state, it'd be better to drink lemonade. But sure, I can get you water if you really want. Water is great for X, Y, and Z. And that's the part where I'm like, it's able to kind of concede some things to the other side, but only as a manipulation to make its argument stronger.
Right.
Because you don't want to seem too gung-ho on one thing without being like, sure, I can get you water right now, but let me make a quick case for lemonade. And that's where I'm like, yes, it can give you skeptical feedback, but I'm like, overall, it can also do that as a means to kind of show one way when really it's swinging the other way.
Empathy, man, that's a powerful tool that gets you to feel related with, and then they flip it on you. Yeah, because everyone knows if there was somebody who just right out the gate, like, no, you need to drink lemonade, or just started crapping on water. How boring. How idiotic. Why would you even think about having that? You're just like, okay, you're no one I want to talk to.
Mullock at the end of his article was like, I only pushed this custom GPT to be so persuasive, and it was a little goofy in the way it like over the top recommended things and silly, because kind of like ChatGPT, it can be like, it can add funny little ways of saying things. He's like, I could have dialed it in more, but of course OpenAI's system level prompts would have tuned it down a little bit too. But imagine if I did dial it in. Imagine if the system prompts were telling it to be like, to serve and make the user happy.
Wow.
How persuasive could this thing be? Even at its current intelligence level, our current best models, it'll be really good. Really good. So this leads us to the end of where I now want to have the actual conversation. Because this has massive implications for marketing. We are in the business of persuasion. Our jobs depend on persuasion. Now we have these models that are in the 99th percentile of persuasive ability in their ability to turn people. I forgot to mention there was another study where they were testing to see how good AI was at flipping people who had beliefs in different, like, what do you call them? The conspiracy theories. And it was pretty effective at getting people to turn or question their own beliefs in conspiracy theories just within a few conversations with practical, logical reasons, but also way better when it had access to memory. Even than humans, it was better at persuading them than humans were, even if humans had access to the same data on the person.
Wow.
Its ability to customize its arguments to fit the individual were remarkably better. So we're dealing with a technology that can be highly persuasive even before it's even like can figure out things like the number of letters in a word or whatever. So as a marketer with this tool, how then do we approach marketing? Should we dial it all the way up and take as much advantage of it as we can? Or do we need to tone it back, and why?
There was that level of the group of people who didn't like AI because it felt inauthentic and like another marketing scheme to just produce more content or create a better campaign. Those people have obviously since jumped more onto AI and using it as a tool, but there's got to be a line somewhere where there is some ethical, moral responsibility for people not to use it in that way. It's like using the chat bot on a website page. Someone has a donation about giving, and it starts using empathy as a tool to get people to donate, get people
Yeah.
to buy. I mean, that's like,
Yeah.
bro.
Just like the lemonade stand, right? Like, imagine it's like, oh, like what caused you to come visit here? Tell me more. And then it finds out you have a backstory, and then it could start using that backstory.
And I'm thinking for like nonprofits where
Yeah.
most giving to those nonprofits is an emotional decision. And
Yes.
and the emotional decision to give can only be like preyed upon by AI by asking those kind of questions, because once you're making
Mhm.
that emotional decision, you're getting questioned about that emotional decision, you're feeling seen about that emotional decision, and it just continues down that rabbit trail to where you are going to give $100. Well, now AI's convinced you to give 500. We've seen this we've seen this in different areas of people manipulating their own nonprofit for people to give thousands or millions of dollars, and the nonprofit is actually bogus and they're only giving like 5% of proceeds away to the actual cause. That's the same kind of uh, manipulation. It's just not from a human anymore, where you're going to hold it accountable. You know what I mean? Those people get held accountable. Dang.
So, and marketers are good at collecting data, and then you can even go buy it to backfill it for individuals. You can find more data.
Right.
We post a lot of stuff
How
online.
fast can AI find data?
Like, imagine you're a B2B company and you're a B2B decision maker, and then as soon as you enter a CRM like HubSpot, it goes and pulls all your past tweets, stuff you've posted online, blog articles, and then the email sequence is armed to be as persuasive as possible based on your past behavior. Now, no one can really do that yet, but I'm sure it really wouldn't be that hard to custom code a solution to fit with HubSpot to do this. Like, it's possible right now as it is. So the question is now, like, part of me as a marketer is like, oh, that sounds amazing. And part of me as a marketer, I'm like, that sounds terrifying, knowing now how we know about how persuasive these things are. How far do we go? How far do we go? Here's where I've come to on this in the short term here. And I think we all have to think, and I'm having this conversation now because it's kind of inevitable. We're going to have this conversation, but we need to start having it early because we need to start being able to use it to make the most, but also like start talking about the implications of this early because it's going to be a bigger and bigger problem. But I think what will happen is that a lot of this is based on trust, which is why the Reddit study was controversial because there was amount of trust broken. They had to lie in order to get that research done. Part of me is kind of glad they did it so that we could know, but they had to break trust in order to do it. There was a trust that people were talking to people and not AI.
Wow.
I think if companies push too hard on this too fast, they will lose trust and ultimately deteriorate their brand. And people will feel it and they'll call it out, and there will be social media cases against them. It's going to hurt the brands who want to do this big. I mean, it'll like you have to be careful to dial this down and not go too hard with big brands because you want to hold a certain level of trust. At the same time, we all know there's those like micro brands out there and we all buy from them. You know, it's the little Chinese vendors on Amazon, and those brands are going to have a heyday with this because they're going to get you to buy in a moment. You see an ad on TikTok, it looks cool, you hit the website, you end up going down a sequence really fast, and it's like hard tuned to persuade you quickly. That kind of manipulation is going to be everywhere. And I imagine us as a society will start to have like words for this of describing it and a backlash against it. So there's some real risks of
Wow.
doing this as marketers because I think we can break trust. The other thing is privacy. If you now have an online community where you're storing all the data, that becomes data that can be armed against you as a consumer, right? Now, it'll be probably pretty safe on things like LinkedIn and Facebook because law will come after them. Like, so the big players will probably actually become safer communities, but the smaller communities actually start to become more dangerous because, they're smaller and fly under the radar more. Where
Right.
you're having conversations and those conversations aren't like AI can scan those and then be able to sell you on the back end.
You know how you get targeted ads sometimes from just talking too close to your phone? Now, you won't just get ads that have been targeted to the interest that you're in. You'll get ads that are created just for you.
Yeah.
Because you see all these video generated models are all, there's someone talking, the script is written, so someone will create a pathway for you to get a specific targeted ad within 30 minutes because you said or you typed or you searched something in any given platform, and now you're scrolling, and then boom, it's like it speaks to the exact emotion that you described, and it's only to you. That's a little bit wild.
And right now, companies don't like to automate these kinds of things because AI can hallucinate and it could go off the
I know,
rails.
but it'll get better.
But like that just won't be for very long, especially even with just the few last couple of weeks of updates with O3, even with like ChatGPT 4.1, which again follows it's much better at sticking to what it was given to do. That alone will just help this actually scale to the point where people can actually do this right now. Current tech. Even now I'm wrestling inside because I'd love to customize a nurture sequence that gives a pretty good argument based on just a few data points, not their whole backstory, not scraping the internet, but like based on the few things they give me, like their job title, their industry, and their audience that they speak to. Like, why wouldn't I want to use the standard copywriting sequence that uses, pass, pain, agitate the pain, solution. Very standard copywriting framework, like one of the most standard ones of all time. Why wouldn't I give AI a prompt with my product with just a few pieces of information and say, hey, use the pass, pain, agitate, solution framework to customize it for them? There's a lot of shades of gray here because that one's like it seems kind of reasonable. It's just hyper personalization. Yeah, it's being more persuasive. I would have done it if I had more time. I'd like to be able to do this for every single customer, but if the thing you're selling isn't worth more than like $10,000 a month, then you can't do that at scale. You shouldn't do it at scale. Obviously, if you're selling something that's $1 million in ARR or annual reoccurring revenue, then yeah, all the B2B companies do that, right? Like they're all customizing every single piece of information that hits the decision maker.
It's like when I was using Salesforce's email system, Pardot, and I saw an ad that said, "Man, are you frustrated with using email systems like Pardot?" I was like, "Yes, yes, I am. You should try."
Pardot, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, it was crazy that someone had an ad specifically. It felt like they were speaking to me, and that was before AI came out. That was like in 2018 that someone had created such a perfectly targeted ad. So imagine how much more AI can speak to your pain. Even if it's a miss, like if I loved Pardot and I had no problem with it, but AI knows I'm using Pardot, and if I don't like it, it'll just use it as a pain point. It's like 50-50 chance. He either loves it or hates it. Like, we'll see. It's enough of a pain point for this ad to work on him. If you
Yep. And I was just
if you love Pardot, you'll love this one even more.
that's just one data point that you could probably select and be like, find me people who like Pardot on Facebook ads, right? But man, imagine you're getting a message being like, hey, like I don't even know what it would say because it'd be going based on your past conversations, kind of like ChatGPT does now.
No, it would say,
It can be
man,
so persuasive.
are you frustrated with Pardot because its user face is so like not acclimated for marketing managers? We totally get it. you need something streamlined for your team, something that's easy to teach. They don't have to watch 8 course videos to get it, dialed in. It's like, well, yeah, all those things I had problems with. Don't use Pardot. I don't even know if it exists anymore. Such a bad product.
So AI's ability to give good reasoned arguments is really strong.
Yeah.
And if you've ever wondered about it, like I challenge everybody to do this. I think I posted this on another LinkedIn post. I was like, hey, if you're feeling brave, go and take a deeply held belief that you have, tell ChatGPT about it, and tell it to like give the counter argument to this deeply held belief. I did. I went some rounds arguing with it over things. And honestly, I did this multiple times with different beliefs across a variety of subjects. In some things I was like so strong on that I'm like, I've heard these arguments before. Let's go. I will freaking argue this to the grave. Like seriously. And then other ones I was like, oh crap. Like I didn't I wasn't as steady in this as I thought. And it started working.
Wow.
It made me backtrack statements because I just couldn't. And these are deeply held beliefs. These are things that I've like wrestled with before. And when it started tearing it apart with just reasoned arguments, but in the nice way, because again, I didn't tell it for brutal honesty. I was like, hey, like, help me think through this. Give me the counter arguments to this so I could become more solid. What did it do? It was like, hey, Dan, this is so like you. I love this about you. You're never settling for the truth. So let's actually wrestle with this together.
It's funny.
Look at that. See that flattery at the beginning? Felt good though, because I'm like, yeah, it does know me. Yeah, this is something I do.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm already like buttered up, and then it's like the swing, bam. So this is what AI's ability to do. But if it can do it against you, it can do it for you to help you persuade to buy, help people buy more stuff. Man, it's funny. I have a book. I have a couple of books actually on like the dangers of propaganda and the dangers of like evil design. It's called, yeah, the book is actually Evil by Design, like using the 7 deadly sins against people. Interesting book. It's made to warn people, but you know who reads these kinds of books are marketers. The age of propaganda is a big one, but I'm like, the only people who read these books are marketers, like the people actually using it to actually get people, because the people who think they have control of their faculties, like they never read these books because they don't think they have a problem. We all have a problem because we all have blind spots. There's a reason why this stuff works. But AI is just going to throw gasoline on the fire and all these different tactics now. And it's going to be bad, of course, from like a fraud perspective, from a calling old people and getting them to send them checks and money because, you know, grandson's in danger kind of thing. Like all those things are going to become like 100 times worse and way more common.
Yeah.
So as much as I'm an optimist for AI, I'm like, I felt like we need to do a whole deep dive on the dark side, because this is the dark side. This isn't theory. This isn't Terminator. This isn't theoretically a year or two out from now. This is
right now.
This is literally around the corner and probably already happening.
Thanks for bringing it up. Usually you're the optimist who says there is nothing to fear. And I'm always like, robots are coming. But yeah, I get it. This is dang.
I'm not concerned about Terminator. I'm more concerned about this stuff. That's like, this is just the next natural like thing for bad actors to do, of course. But I think all the middle actors, because again, many shades of gray. There will be better ways of doing this. There will be less better ways of doing this. And marketers, essentially, most marketers are playing in the shades of gray somewhere.
Dang.
So here we go. Use it wisely. But remember, trust is a key factor. If you're trying to build a brand, which is what all marketers should be doing, you have to be very careful with this as far as to how persuasive you want it to be with your prospects.
Good.